first thing I'd like to do is to get everybody to take a deep breath, to settle down your nervous system. For the last 5 million years of evolution, we still haven't found a better way to settle down our nervous system, and breath is the best way to do it. And I'm going to be challenging you with a couple of things today that I'm going to be talking about. And for some of you guys, it's going to be familiar, and others it won't. Right? But what I can share with you is that the top 1% performers on the planet have one thing in common, and that is the power to be present, to be where you are. Bring your mind to where your feet are. So forget about what was happening this morning, forget about what you've got to do later on today, and if you're addicted to your mobile phone, this talk is exactly for you. So I want to refer to my mate here. Anybody know who Ted Lasso is? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the rest of you who don't know, I think you should Google him and find out. Ted Lasso is a show on TV, very entertaining, funny, certainly my level of humour. But the reason I like it so much is got an undertone of it, of personal development, how to evolve people to a better place on the planet. So I think you'll find it very enlightening. Okay, so I want you to now think about your business life as an iceberg. What I've come to learn through my business journey is that most of us focus only on what's above the waterline, because that's where sales are made, revenue is made, and hopefully you'll get some profit. That's not guaranteed. But that's where we spend all our time focusing, and the reason we do that is because that's what people see of who you are. That's the bit that you expose. That's the bit that everybody that you run into sees. But what if what's happening below the waterline is impacting everything that's above the waterline? And the reason why you don't pay attention to it, because nobody sees that. And worse still, you're not paying attention to it. So what I want to share with you today is some nuggets along the way that are going to be helpful for you on your business journey. But there'll be different nuggets for different people, because everybody's on a different journey. We're not on the same journey. But I don't want you to think about all the nuggets. I just want to think about the ones that are pertinent to you, where you are right at this moment. And I'm going to use some fancy words like neurobiology and neuropsychology. But I don't want you to get overwhelmed with these words. I'll break it down for you. What's neurobiology? Neurobiology is the operating system we've been given. Callum, this is the hard drive. Right? It's a study of how our brain and our nervous system has evolved over millions of years. We've all got the same one. We don't have a different one. How we use it is differently. And that's where neuropsychology comes in. Neuropsychology is made up of 3 systems. These are the programs that we put into the hard drive. Equally, we all got the same programs. But neuropsychology is the interplay of these 3 systems at work, along with the neurobiology, the computer you got, that creates all your human behaviour and gives you all your business outcomes. So what's happening below the iceberg is directly impacting everything that's happening up top there. So what I want to share with you is how we relate this back to our business journey, and so that we can use the neurobiology and the neuropsychology. And I'm going to talk to you about those 3 systems a little bit further down. But I want just you to understand that I'm prepping you for what's the one thing that I want you to take away from today. I don't want you to take 50 nuggets. I want you to take one thing with you when you leave, and to think about it when you're in the car driving away here. Because it may actually change your business journey and take you in a different direction that you've been looking for. And Lorraine mentioned it earlier, that who's having challenges in their business from time to time. Well, the truth is that we all do. But what I've learned to understand as a business coach is that we're looking in the wrong place for the answer. Now, some of this information I'm going to share with you today is going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. And that's cool, right? I'm here to push your thinking to move outside your realms of what you've been thinking to this point. And it's this information that's going to help you evolve, because your future growth will predominantly come from what you don't know, not what you do know. So we get stuck in what we do know instead of evolving to where we need to go. So today's message is really one about how do you evolve yourself to learn more about your business journey and see what the things I've got to say today, where you fit into that spectrum. Now, Before I go too much further, I want to give you context to why am I standing here in front of you guys, which is a privileged position. So Lorraine mentioned that I've been in business for 33 years, started my journey a long time ago, pre-mobile phones, pre-internet. There's not too many people in the room that probably would know that, but the last 22 years I've been a real estate agent and I've still got that business and it's thriving. It's a commercial real estate agent. We do property development, we do multi-unit industrial sites, syndicate them, and out of that we've got a sales and leasing business and also a property management business. But fortunately for me, with the help of a good team, I've now managed to extract myself out of that and I'm living the dream of what I want to do, and that is to help other business owners on their Everest to where they want to go. So about 11 years ago, I got really interested in human behaviour and how it's dictating everything we get. And I became obsessed about it. Because initially it was to help my own deficiencies of where I was in my business at that time. And I started to learn about human behaviour and how it's impacting us and really started to pay attention to it. And I came around this slippery slope to end up where I am now 11 years further down the track with the businesses that's servicing all my financial needs, and I get to do what I want to do. And this is help other people where they're at in their business journey. So what I'm interested in doing is bringing the neurobiology and the neuropsychology and get people to understand that and how it's connected with your business development that you're trying to get in your life. And if you can bring those two things together and get what's going on in the iceberg below the waterline matched up with what's going above, and that's where exponential growth comes from. And that's been my experience in helping my business owners. There's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, but I won't be talking to you too much about what happens above the line. There's plenty of experts in this room can help you do that. What I'm liking to do is to help you what's going on below the waterline so that from there you might have an aha moment and you can move forward from there. So these two worlds of neurobiology and business, for me, came together, collided about 3 years ago when it helped me make the biggest sale I've ever made in real estate with this property here. So this property is in the southern suburbs. For those who don't know, this is in Myrie. It's a prime commercial property, 16,500 square metres, 2,000 square metre building, leased to the government for circa $600,000. And the rest of it was vacant land and a couple of old sheds in the corner, bounded by 3. So prime real estate, which was owned by 2 old Italian gentlemen, let's call them. Now these 2 old Italian gentlemen, like a lot of Italians, they came out after the war with nothing, and through hard work and determination, they had the smarts to accumulate property, and this was one of them. There's 2 guys together. So these guys knew each other from school and were friends, or so I thought. So for the sake of protecting the names of these people, let's call them one Giuseppe and the other one Luigi. We can all relate to Giuseppe and Luigi. So I first met Giuseppe 12 to 18 months prior to this, getting this property for sale. Now Giuseppe, I could tell from the very word go that he was going to be a hard character to crack. After the first meeting, I thought to myself, I'm on a knife's edge here, any wrong move and I'm out the door. What I subsequently found, the reason he got me in was because he had 3 vacant properties in another building he owned that he couldn't lease, and he got us in for a referral, and that's how I met him. Then after a period of about 12 months of actually finding tenants for those properties and end up managing the whole building that they had, we built up a relationship, and that's when he introduced me to this property. And at that stage he was getting his late 70s, touching 80, and he thought, in his words, he was organising his affairs so his kids didn't fight over it when he passed away. Very common thing for old Italians to think about, right? They don't want to leave a mess behind, is one of their characteristics. So what I found out is that he had chewed up a long list of other real estate agents that he'd spat out and gone. So I thought, instead of running away from that, I decided that with all my human behaviour experience, I'm going to try and tame the beast. So I set on that pathway. When this property came up for sale, he introduced me to his partner. That's the first time I met Luigi. And I knew straight away from the very first meeting that these guys were not talking to each other and there was a major conflict going on. And I didn't know what it was because I didn't get warned. After the first meeting, Luigi pulled me aside and said, good luck trying to do a deal with Giuseppe, and if you can get me out of this partnership, I'll be forever grateful. Mind you, he was 79 as well. So we set about the task of doing that. Now, once I worked out that Giuseppe was still a schoolyard bully, he was a sociopath, he used people as an object to his needs, He wasn't a very nice bloke. And Luigi, although submissive, was a master manipulator and knew how to make a deal and save $1 and make $1. That's why they had this accumulated this type of property. But anyway, after about 12 months of lots and lots of conversations across his dinner table, we managed, after buyers coming and going, we managed to crack a deal and we got it done. And that was 3 years ago, and Luigi and Giuseppe haven't spoken since. And probably nor they ever will. But the reason I tell you about that story is really to highlight the fact that if I hadn't had the training in human behaviour to understand these two feuding personalities, and this property had gone to the market 4 or 5 times, which I was unaware of over a 15-year period, and Giuseppe self-sabotaged it every time. And that's what Luigi wasn't happy about, and that's why they went to client. I didn't find that out until after the event. But we managed to get the deal done, and everybody got to move on. So that's why I want to give you an idea today, is how do we bring the world of neurobiology and neuropsychology, which is driving our human behaviour. That's the bit that you need to take away. It's human behaviour that's driving everything we do, and therefore it gets our results. How do we bring that into our business life? So these are the 2 key questions I want to put things through today. First one is, who is really in control? And when I say who's in control, we know that you are in control. What we don't know is which part of you is in control. And when you figure out which part of you is in control, then you can act differently and get the results that you say you really want. Because there's a big gap between what you say you want and what you get. And that's the bit, which is the second question. Why don't we get what we say we want? So my life journey as a business coach, is answering the second question for everybody who wants to know. Why aren't you getting what you say you want? And I'm telling you, it's not a sales and marketing system. Or a new marketing funnel. Oops. Here we go. Oops. That gave away the farm. So what do we really want? Okay, so now that that's happened, and I've tripped over my shoelaces, let me ask you, what do you really want? You know what the answer is, but what I'm going to tell you, the reason why there's only one light bulb in that photo is because everything you really want ends up in the one place. And now you know it's productivity. Let's reverse engineer this, right? So what do you really want? Does anybody want any more money in their business? Yes. Yep. Thank you. Right? The other people didn't put your hand up, you're liars. Right? Who wants more? Sorry?
I want more profit.
Thank you. That's fine. That's good. That's a good answer, right? So revenue doesn't equal profit. What else do we want? Time. Yep. Time back. Do we want more customers and clients? Do we want to make better connections? There's yes to everything, isn't it? Well, all those things, the byproduct of all those things is productivity. Now I can push the button. Oops. Oh, sorry. That's when you don't use your own. Never do a talk with animals and so productivity is really what we want. And the reason why that's important is because if you're asking the question, why aren't you getting what you say you want, you've actually got to figure out what it is you actually want before you can answer the question and why you're not getting it, right? So we need to reverse engineer this. And that's why productivity ultimately, now productivity means different things to different people. And for me at the moment, my productivity in the real estate company allows me to only work there 4 to 5 hours a week. That's productivity to me, right? But for you, it might mean something else depending on where you are on your journey. So I think what I'm getting to here is that if we can just frame up this conversation and productivity is what we're actually after, by the way, that's where you get paid in the business. If you don't have productivity, you don't actually make any money. Now, the challenge of a business growth development is how do you bring efficiencies to productivity so you can do it more efficiently, more effectively, so you don't have to spend 80 hours in a week in a business trying to drive it to get it to whatever it is you say you want. So, what's a common mistake? We get productivity and growth mixed up. We put them in the same sentence too often, and they're completely different things. Now for me, in my business coaching journey, what I've deduced is there's 3 types of growth. The first growth is growth by doing more. And that's what most of us get stuck in. And the reason we get stuck in it is because when we start out a business, we've got to do that for survival. If we don't make any customers and we don't get any clients in and we don't make any sales, then the rest of the stuff doesn't matter because you're dead within 6 to 8 months, 2 years, whatever it may be. So survival means you have to make sales. So you have to grow by just doing more. More sales, more revenue, more customers, more clients, more work, more hours, more marketing funnels, more this, more that, and it's growth by doing more. But this is what we really want. We want to do growth by achieving more. If anybody who's been in business more than 3 to 5 years doesn't really want a growth by doing more. What they want is growth by actually achieving more. They want to have productivity, because that's where productivity lives. It's in achieving from what you're doing. It doesn't come from growth. And Paul, you mentioned it. You can have lots and lots of revenue, but it doesn't mean you're going to make any profit. And all you do is end up becoming a busy fool. Right? Can anybody relate to getting stuck in growth by doing more? Yeah. What do you really want? You really want a growth by achieving more. So how do we do that? That's a third growth. You need to become more. You need to become someone that you are not. Because what it takes to grow a business from 0 to 5 years is not the same as it takes to grow from 5 to 7, 7 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, and so on. And the only way you do that is to evolve who you are, to learn more about what it is that is driving you to be able to go from doing more to achieving more. So this little matrix here helps people understand what is the common mistake they're doing, to put the focus in their business on so the first question you should be asking yourself, am I just growing by doing more? And if anybody's been around in my environment, I would have asked you that question already. Thanks, Rob. Don't keep nodding, mate, your head will fall off. So, what business are you really in then? So if you're in IT, you're in sales and marketing, if you're in plumbing, if you're an electrician, if you're a business coach, if you're in accounting, financial services, whatever it is, you're all in the same business, and that's leadership. You need to lead yourself. The way you lead yourself is by understanding who you are. Self-awareness is the number one skill in business. Underline that, write it down, take it home, put it on the wall. Understand that it's got nothing to do with sales and revenue market. Is until you understand who you are, you'll never get what you say you want. In fact, I'll go one step further and say it's personal leadership. So before you can start thinking about leading a team to where it is you want to go, you need to start figuring out how to lead yourself along the way. And then from there, you get to understand more about who you are. You'll start to know your clients, your team, and what makes them thrive. And then from there, you can help get a direction towards your vision and your goals. So you need to lead the vision and the goals as a leader of your organisation. So personal leadership is the business that you are really in. And if you can make that mind shift away from this narrow vision of I'm selling A, B, C, whatever it is, and move that towards I'm actually in the business of personal leadership, your world will change, as did mine. So what gets in the way of becoming more? Beliefs. So this is a stepping stone to try and figure out why isn't it why we don't get what we get. So why do we have beliefs? Belief systems are a construct of what you think is right or wrong, true or false in your world. There's not too many universal truths that apply to everybody and everything. But our belief system is that we think they are. So our beliefs are purposefully made, or as in the reason why it's evolved that we have beliefs, because it's a way of navigating and making sense of the world. If we didn't have any beliefs, we wouldn't know what to do on a day-to-day basis. And the problem is that your brain has got this little thing called the reticular activating system, the RAS, if you haven't heard about it, look it up, that helps you find in your environment all the things that you believe and discount all the things that you don't believe. So it's a sorting out process. So there's one problem with the RAS. It can't tell the difference between what's a good belief that's helping you, and it can't tell the difference between a bad belief that is taking you away from where you want to go. It's good, but it's not that good. And what that leads to is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is where you are validating everything you believe to be true or false, and your brain will go into the universe and find that information and bring it in and validate what your beliefs are. So what does that do? That leads to this. Limiting beliefs. So if you're a business coach or you're anybody you're trying to help someone, the best way to evolve them as quickly as possible is to pull back what are their limiting beliefs, unpack that if they're ready for the conversation, because most people aren't because their belief is so strong. And if they're not ready for the shift in the beliefs, you might as well forget everything else, because if they're not willing to evolve their beliefs to go to a place that they say they want, not what Torrin wants, what they want, then you need to help them evolve the belief systems to get to where so to alleviate confirmation bias. Because this is one of the things that gets in our way of what it is that you're actually trying to achieve. So when you go back to the question is what you really want, and you find out that your beliefs aren't aligned, that's going to be a problem. So my personal journey is one of two halves. There was the version of Torrin prior to the global financial crisis, and there's the version after the global financial that evolved me to who I am here today standing in front of you. So the first 19 years, so for me, the 2008 global financial crisis nearly broke me emotionally, spiritually, and certainly financially. I thought it was actually over for me, my business journey at that time, because I wasn't prepared for the 2008 global financial crisis. And even though I had 19 years in business, it was built on growing by doing more, and I didn't have a foundational structure that was going to help me get through this period. So my world came crashing down, but I was in denial about it. That was my problem. And for you, it might be a different reckoning, but for me, it was the global financial crisis. And because after 19 years in business, I thought, well, I've got this all together. From the outside looking in, people looked at me and what I had in my business, that everything was going okay. But the thought of having to sell the family home and take my kids out of the school where they were thriving pretty much broke my heart. But I didn't have to do that. I decided to, even though there was 2 years of anxiety until I got back on my feet, lots of struggles, sleepless nights, I was hiding behind a mask that I didn't want anybody to see, and I was suffering in silence. But I evolved through that. I decided one or two things I could do. I could either retreat and go and get a real job to support my family, or I could push through. So I decided to push through to see what happened on the other side of that. And it was at this time when I went down 11 years ago on the personal journey path to understand, firstly, why did I get myself in this mess in the first place? And once I figured out that hopefully was going to help me get myself out of this mess. And that's what actually happened. So the first 2 years was just really reconciling where I was at, how did I get there, try and hold to the business as much as possible, bearing in mind property market going through the floor, no funding, people weren't doing projects, deals were falling over left, right and centre. Put that into perspective. And then going home to your wife and kids going, I don't know what's going on, let's see if we can work our way through it. But that's what I did. But the reason I tell you about that is that my pathway out of that was about shifting my limiting beliefs, because it was my limiting beliefs that got me to that place, and I had to shift those limiting beliefs to move out of it. And it was that catalyst. There was one catalyst or one thing that I heard at the time. And it was from probably, I don't know if you guys have heard about Peter Drucker, but he was considered the genius of the last century as far as business development. And it was this quote that turned everything around for me. Don't ask how I can be successful. That's the wrong question. Ask how I can be valuable. That's the right question. And when I started focusing everything I was doing through that funnel, my world changed in front of me. I started to forget about him making money, being successful, getting the house on the hill, putting the car in the garage, all the rest of it. I started to decide, how can I be valuable for the person who wants my services, and hopefully the rest will look after itself. And I had to start shifting my beliefs. So how you shift your beliefs is by getting new evidence that support what you think. So as you shift an idea to get new information, unless you get evidence that supports that new belief, you're not going to follow through with it. So this is the last word on beliefs. To achieve your goals, they must be aligned with your beliefs. If you are shooting for a goal that's over here, but your belief systems are over here, you'll self-sabotage your way onto that goal. And we've all had the experience of doing that. So what's the options? Do you revise your goals or do you shift your beliefs? What is it that you'd rather do? Now this is where goals and vision get mixed up. We have a vision for the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years of where we'd like to be, but your brain can't handle a goal more than 90 days in advance. That's what the neuroscience is telling us. So what you need to do is bring that goal that's going to support that vision closer to where your beliefs are based on your capacity and your capability of where you are now. A good business coach will help you figure that out. So what happens is then you get some new evidence that shifts your belief a little bit towards that goal. You achieve that goal, which is now in a 30 to 69, 90-day window, and then that starts shifting you further down. So as your goals shift, you'll end up, belief system will be aligned with where you were. So for me, my belief system had to shift to be able to sell a $15 million property and make my biggest sale ever in real estate. And I had to shift to be able to learn this stuff, to be able to present in front of you guys about business development and neuropsychology, because I'm telling you that 3 years ago, you wouldn't see me up here. But it's a belief system that shifts. So your limiting beliefs are holding you where you're at. Just like these guys climbing up the mountain. They go from one bit of, what do they call them, base camp, and they shift to the next base camp, they regroup, they shift to the next base camp, they shift. They don't walk all the way up to the mountain, they'll never make it. So I'm not saying that you should limit your vision of where you want to go. Don't get me wrong there, I'll make that very clear. What I'm saying is get smarter about how you're putting your goals together and bringing your goals closer to where your capabilities are now and stretching them bit by bit. That's called belief revision. Beliefs you don't let go of beliefs. You revise them. You don't do a 180-degree shift on your beliefs. But if you want to go and find the information to support your belief, you'll find it everywhere you are. So your challenge is, how do I shift new knowledge, which is hopefully what I'm sparking you today, to start thinking about this, where this fits in. And as you get some evidence to actually help you, you'll move more towards it. And I'll finish off this little bit with a quote from Henry Ford, which is one of my favourites. And that is, if you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you'll be right. So if your belief is that you can't do what you want to do, your brain will go out there, support your belief systems, and it'll actually prove to you, and it'll self-sabotage you to get what you say you want, because it'll actually support you doing that. So Henry Ford went okay. And this was one of his ways of going. So, who's really in control? So I just want to take a deep breath again, because that's still the only way to settle down your nervous system. So if you're a little bit agitated, one of the things that I've been learning out of studying human behaviour is to read body language. And your nervous system is directly connected to your eyes and your blink rate. So I can see that the blink rate is slowed right down, which means that you're focusing, which is good. When you're distracted, or you're nervous, or you're stressed, your blink rate goes up. Goes up to 30 to 40 blinks per minute. In a calm state, it comes down to about 10 to 12. You guys are all in a calm state. Is that fair? You guys are in a calm state? And P.S., does it feel like a fire hose, or is it a garden hose? Or maybe it's just a nice little glass of water. Glass of water? Cool. I'm sure it'll be different for everybody. There's probably some people in the room going, what the hell is he talking about? Right? But that's fine. I'm here to challenge you, right? So you to have a think about where it is you want to go. So let's get to the core of what I wanted to share with you today. So this is now, I'm going to tell you, this is the bit, all the other stuff, this was just setting you up for this little bit here, right? So this is the core of what you want you to take. Who's actually in control? So remember I said to you at the start, we've got the neuropsychology, which has got 3 systems. Here's the 3 systems. These are the 3 programs we got. We've got a doing system, we've got a thinking system, and we've got an emotional system. Callum touched on the emotional system in his little chat earlier, right? And anybody who's in marketing knows that that's the place to go. Problem is, as individuals and how we're developing ourselves, we get told from an early age to suppress that and don't look at those emotions, right? So then we grow up to be big business owners and we go, don't need that because I've got a thinking system that can sort this all out. So what does a doing system do? Doing system, put aside the fact that we've got an autonomic nervous system that keeps your heart going and your kidneys going without you having to think about it, which is part of that. So let's just put that aside a moment. But the doing system is where your behaviour exposes itself in the world, right? Because you might think about doing something, but until you take some action or do something, you're not doing anything. So if I want to get a drink of water from across that table there, I have to think about, there's a glass of water there, there's not one here. I have to walk across there, get the glass of water, take the drink. So that's the doing bit. The thinking bit isn't going to get me the glass of water. So we can think about all sorts of things as much as we like, but unless we implement the doing system, nothing's going to happen. The thinking system is a critical part of your brain. That sorts out problems, helps you get insight, to look at what went wrong, how do we fix that. So this is the one that we use all the time to drive our doing system. So what about the emotional system? By the way, who thinks which, I've probably bowed you up already, which system do you think is the most powerful within us? Anybody think the thinking system is? So it's interesting that when I have this conversation, nobody thinks that the thinking system is in control, but yet they try and work their way through everything by thinking and not paying attention to the emotion. So why don't we get what we say we want? We may not be paying attention to the right thing. That could be a clue, because I'm not going to give you the answer to that question. You're going to come to your own conclusions. What I'm about to give you now is the neurobiology of why your emotions are actually running the show without you even realizing it. So what's made up of the emotional system is a primal need to move us away from pain towards pleasure. Because the emotional system is the reflection of how we feel. The feelings that we get is what plays out. So we label them as emotion. We're angry, we're sad, we're happy, we're joyful, we're frustrated. They're the emotions, they're the feelings, and then we describe them as emotion. But before you even get to think that, your nervous system is way ahead of you and it's creating a physical feeling within you, which then you try and figure out what that is. And by the time your thinking system catches up, you've already reacted to it, if you allow it to. Does that make sense? So, the other primal bit that you need to know about where neurobiology fits together is that operating system that I spoke about, which is neurobiology. That's got only two tasks for us. One is to keep us safe. Otherwise, we wouldn't have survived 5 million years as a species. And the other one is to connect. They're the two primal things that your nervous system, your brain structure, is built to do. So they're two of the building blocks. The other two building blocks is stay away from pain and move towards pleasure. Every emotion that you feel, every feeling that you get is born out of those four things. That's one of the takeaways for you today, is to understand these four primal things. And if you get into my environment, I'll explain more of that, because I haven't got time today to go. That's a larger conversation. But that all leads to how you're dealing with your stuff in your business life. So what's emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is how you regulate your emotional system. Because if your emotional system is the most powerful one within you, and you leave it unchecked, that's going to be driving the doing system without even the thinking system getting involved. Does that make sense? Who gets trapped in the emotional system going straight to the doing system, and then the thinking system comes in later and goes, well, why did you do that? That's what's going on, right? Because the chemical reaction within our brain, magic that it is way, way, way faster than your thinking system, because it's a lot less evolved. So for those who want to know, this is what happened. And this will be put into perspective. So I'll come back to the 5 million, but we started off 500 million years ago with the first evidence of vertebrates. Then 400 million years ago, so a lazy 100 million, we ended up with the first four-legged animals that roamed the earth. They were called tetrapods. About 65 million years ago, so we jumped a bit, the first mammals started to dominate the earth. Reptiles got pushed aside. 25 million years ago, apes split from the monkey world. And 5 million years ago, the closest relative to who we are now diverged and started walking on 2 feet. And that's Papa Bear and Mama Bear on the left there. So that was 5 million years ago. How they survived was through an emotional system and a doing system. Because as you go down this timeline, when we get to who we are, so we came out of Neanderthals and we turned into humans, they're not sure, but somewhere between 80,000 and 100,000 years ago. That's when the thinking system was developed. So for
Still doesn't quite work.
still doesn't quite work, does it? Now, there's a school of thought out there. I haven't done enough research on this, but let me just throw it out to you anyway. There's the only reason our thinking system evolved is to regulate the emotional system because it was getting out of control, that we were killing everybody. So the human species, through natural evolution, figured out that I need something a bit more organised here to help organise. So you can see in the last 100,000 years or 80,000 years to when we started civilization as we know it to now, which is only 6,000 years ago, that our thinking system is rapidly taking over because it's able to control the emotional system, if you are aware of it. So the evolutionary process is making the emotional system the most powerful one within it. Is that in control? And just in case you don't believe me, because who am I? Brené Brown. If everybody know Brené Brown or know of Brené Brown? You don't know Brené Brown? If you haven't got, Google her, please, and go and listen. So she's 25-year plus researcher on human behaviour. And for those who know, you'll understand her style. She's a Texan lady and she's fantastic. So this is a quote from a recent YouTube video. In fact, you want to Google it, Brené Brown. Life advice on emotions will leave you speechless. It's a 10-minute thing, so it's not too long. But from that, I've extracted this quote. Make no mistake, emotions are at the wheel. Thinking and doing are not riding shotgun in the front seat. They are hog-tied in the trunk. And if you've ever listened to Brené Brown speak, you can hear her saying that. Right? So after 25 years of her research, this is how she's come about it. So let's go back to the iceberg. The doing system sits above the waterline. That's our behaviours out there, that's our marketing systems, that's our sales and our processes, our systems. And our thinking system and our emotional system sit below the waterline, and sometimes they pop their head up. But we don't get to see a lot of that. So how do we hack the systems? Because that's what we really want, don't we? We want to hack the system. We need to outsmart the emotional system with our thinking system to drive the doing system. So we all clear about the three systems? You all got them. You can't throw them out. It's just how you use them is going to be important. So when you start paying attention to the fact that this is now neuroscience is telling us this, because now they've, in the last 30 odd years, they've really got in deep to figure out what's firing on in neurons to make all this happen, whereas previously they were never able to figure it out. So for us to be able to get what we want out of our business, although the most powerful is the emotional system, if you use your thinking system to regulate your emotional system, you can get what you say you want. But if you don't pay attention to what that's doing, you won't get what you want. Now, this is most recent evidence about this, and when I say recent, 25 years. This guy here figured it out 100 years ago. So Carl Jung, who's one of our grandfathers of psychology, he lived from 1875 to 1961. So when he quoted this, it was about 100 years ago, roughly, give or take a few years ago. Until you make your unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Just sit on that thought for a moment. What he's really saying 100 years ago is what they've caught up with, is that if you leave your emotional system unchecked, it'll rule your life, and then you'll go, it's fate. Or, I don't know why I got that. I don't know why I self-sabotage. I don't know why I didn't get what I want. And this goes to everything that we do. As I said, 100-year-old information is still quite valuable when it comes to this. So what I want to do is just to, as we conclude this, I want to give you a framework that I use to help get you to understand this. Just give me 5 minutes to go through this. So the outer game is everything above the waterline on your iceberg. So I'll start with that and then I'll move across to the inner game, which is my description of what's under the waterline. So every business has 5 functions. I think everybody in this room will relate to this. Is either sales and marketing function, operations, delivery of the product or service, finances, or people challenges. And everybody in this room probably has a focus on helping someone else in business or somewhere. So if you're a business-to-business type business owner, and you're helping another business owner, you are probably in one of these fields to help them either operations, sales and marketing, deliver their product service, in their finances, or in their people challenges, HR, business coaches. Certainly what I do is focused on people challenges, because the biggest problem that gets in the way of success is you as the business owner. Now what we do is we run those 5 functions with strategy, tactics, models, processes, systems, and we develop all this stuff to support these 5 functions. And I won't go into where you fit as a business owner. When we do a coaching call, I will say, how much time are you spending at each of these 5 functions, and are you spreading yourself too thin across, or should you be focusing on your genius where it is? If you want to grow your business, you need to extract yourself and employ people to do these 5 functions, and you become a real leader and entrepreneur of your business. What this is all supported by is visions and goals, and I've touched on today the difference between the two. So vision is something that you want to get to out in front, and if you don't have a vision at the moment, what I suggest you do when you get home tonight, spend 5 minutes and just write down a piece of paper, where do you want to be in 2 years' time? That's your vision, because every goal that you set should be supporting that vision, and if it's not supporting that vision, don't do it. Because you're getting caught in doing things that's not taken to where you say you want to go. And this is one of the biggest common problems of haven't got enough time in my business. So all that over there is about productivity. That's the foundation that holds up the 5 functions of business and what we do in our outer game. Now what I've come to understand is these 3 things on the bottom, these determinants, are one of the most impactful things of getting you moving to where it is you want to go. So any challenges that you have in your business and in your inner game, but let's say your outer game, it's either a focus problem, a connection problem, or a courage problem. So if you haven't got the right market, you haven't connected well with them. If you are working 80 hours a week and you don't know what's going on, you've got a focus problem. If you need to make a decision about evolving your belief systems and you don't know what to do because you're crippled by fear, you've got a courage problem. And in fact, quite often you've got all 3 problems running at the same time. So every problem you have in your business are surface problems, and they come down to these 3 core problems. Isn't that great? I've just taken away all your problems, and now you've only got 3. Right? But when you challenge and when you channel them through there, because all your problems you have outside who you are, which is what I'm talking about here, your inner game is who you are, your outer game is your business and what people get to see of you. All those challenges either have an origin or a pathway through one of these 3 things. So that's what's happening in the outer game. The inner game, this first bit about personal leadership, responses, actions and behaviours, they get created in the internal system, but they play out in the outer game. But for me, as I'm about to show you, what happens underneath that impacts all your responses, your actions and behaviours, which then drives everything you do in your outer game. And what happens is that we all pay attention to what's above the waterline on our iceberg, and we don't pay attention to what's going on underneath the waterline. And if you want to take one thing away from today, that's it. Understand how you are emotionally driven that's causing your results and outcomes above the waterline that's displayed in the behaviour in your outer game. So as we go down, so what's impacting all those responses, actions and behaviours? Well, the granddaddy of them all is emotions. Underneath that seats beliefs, we talked about that, value systems. So those 3 things pretty much, if you focus on those 3 things, the other stuff maybe not so much. But I've just listed a few things which are here that impact your actions, behaviours, but there's many more. But ego, identity, fear, experiences, conditioning, judgment, trauma is a big one. Right at the moment, trauma is like the big buzzword of psychology, is like what happened in your childhood that's impacting what you're doing now at the age of 40, 50 and 60. And we've all got it. So it's not about whether you've had any trauma or not, it's just how bad is your trauma impacting you is the better question. And some of it's really quite serious and some of it can be managed. So traumatic is an experience, trauma is the result or reflection on that experience. So trauma can go on for 50 years. The actual event might have happened when you were 5. That's the traumatic experience. The trauma is what you feel afterwards, and that's what all PTSD is all about. Your resilience, your character, temper. So all these things make up your internal operating system. And how do we? What's the view or the lens we need to put that through is through self-awareness. And that's why self-awareness is the number one skill, because until you figure out what's going on with your ego, your identity, your values, your belief system, how it's impacting all your behaviours and actions, because that's driving everything on the left-hand side. And equally, these three determinants show up in here. Because if you're not connected to your emotions, you're not going to understand them. You're not going to become aware, and therefore you can't take any action on them. If fear is driving you, remember one of our primal neurobiological things to do is to keep us safe. And when we don't feel safe, guess what pops up? Fear. What's the antidote to fear? Courage. That's how you push through the barrier that you're worried about. I had to push through the barrier to stand up here and talk to you guys today. And focus. Well, if you're not paying attention to the fact that your ego is not taking you in the right place, or your identity is a bit misplaced in where you're at, well then you're not focusing on that, and you've got a focus problem with it. That's then impacting all your behaviours above. So I just want to finish off with the questions. It's productivity we want. I think we all agreed that we can put everything through a productivity model, no matter what it is to you. So why don't we get what we say we want? Well, I'm going to leave you with this question. Are you paying attention to what's in control? I'm suggesting it's emotions, left unchecked. But if you want to use your thinking system, which has been given to us about 80, 90,000 years ago, according to the neurobiology, then the best use of your thinking system is to regulate your emotional system and see how it's producing the results that you're getting now, so you can answer the question, why don't I get what I say I want? Thanks, guys. Oh, by the way, there's a prize here for the best question that, Lorraine, you're going to decide what they are. There's a copy of my book. That's the second prize. The first prize is one of my favourite books I like to gift. So I'll give that to someone today. I've got a stash of them at home that I give to my clients, and it's called The Gap and the Gain. And it's all about, are you focusing on the gap of your life, or are you focusing on the gain of your life? So if you're looking for happiness in your business life, this book will change your world. And now I view everything that I'm doing through a lens of gratitude, based on what's the gain that I've achieved from where I am to where I am today, instead of getting stuck in this horizon that is always shifting as you move towards it, because that's what happens with horizons, apparently. The closer you get to it, the further it goes away. So what happens is, as business owners, the reason why we get discontent is we're stuck in the gap all the time. Now the truth is that we shift from the gap to the gain all the time. Or we just natural, that's what happens to us, we're drifting out. The challenge is, when we're in the gap, how do we get ourselves back into gratitude? Is by working out what had happened to us to get us here. How did we evolve? What's the gift I've learned? And today, I can't remember, I think I was talking to Justin earlier about some dramas. I said, your challenge is to figure out where the gift in that challenge is. And when you get grateful around that, that'll give you the lesson. And that gives you the motivation, the momentum to go forward into the gap to where it is that you want to go to achieve your goals. So anyway, so there's a book there for the best question. Go on, fire away. I won't promise I'll give you the right answer, but...
So Torrin, how do you work with clients to firstly identify the limiting beliefs and then help them shift them?
Great question, Kate. Well, so my process is deconstruction to reconstruction. So we need to figure out how you got to where you got to, what are your belief systems, and I have 10 questions that I'll ask in a discovery call. So within an hour, as I'm evolving that, I know the right question to ask you to know what's limiting you to where it is. And now in a conversation I'll have with someone in an hour, I'll tell them at least 10 times that's a limiting belief, that's a limiting belief, that's a limiting belief. So what happens is the first place awareness. So the process is, how do you evolve out of deconstructing where you got to then reconstructing? And one of the first things is the belief system, and asking that question, why aren't you getting what you want? Because until you know what it is you want, you're going to keep reconstructing something to a place that you don't even know where you're going, right? So you need to have a vision. So I don't know if that's answered the question, but basically there's a process, an hour conversation generally, and I offer that up for people who want to do that. And then that leads to a strategy call before you even think about you're doing any coaching or getting involved. And for what it's worth, I just do it. You go.
No,
No, I was going to. Oh, has the microphone gone off or something? Oh, sorry, yeah.
I got the microphone.
Yeah,
now.
okay.
I hope this is the best question. How do you know that someone else's limiting belief is not yours?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. You ask another question. You ready?
Yeah.
How is it serving you? So if you're worried that someone else's limiting belief is affecting you, the best coaching question you can ask when you come up with a problem is, how is that problem serving you? And if you can answer that question and go, I don't know, yes it is or no it's not, that's the pathway to get into what you need to revise and shift. Okay? So answer a question with another question. Go, Oliver. Oh, sorry. There you go, sorry.
My question is centred around, we often achieve our results through others as a leader. And what's your advice in terms of harnessing some of what you've talked about here to engage them? Because obviously the change starts with us.
Yep.
But what's your advice around that?
Okay, great question. So go back to self-awareness. The more you learn about yourself and your emotional drivers, when you connect the dots, when you learn more about yourself, you start to learn more about the people around you, particularly the people you're trying to influence. When you learn more about them, you know how to direct them to get what they want. And that's another conversation from leadership, self-determination theory. There's 3 things that every human being needs. And when you understand that about yourself, you can then start applying that to your team around you, and that helps them carry you towards your vision that you've created. They get fulfillment out of doing that when they know what those things are. And you as a leader, if you're not tapping into your team to know what is driving them, then you're not going to get them to where they're. So the 3 things, just for what it's worth, is we all want to get in control of our destiny. So we want autonomy, we want to know competence, we know what we're doing, and we want a feeling of belonging. All 3 of us, those 3 things, we all built on that. We want a sense of belonging, a sense of control or autonomy. So if you've got a staff member that's not going well, it's one of those 3 things that is out of whack. You just got to figure out which one it is. And if I'm meeting with you and you're saying you're discontent, I'm going to channel in and go, which one of those 3 things is out of whack for you? Because once you get those 3 things in alignment, things start to happen and you evolve to a better place.
And what about that sense of purpose as well?
Yep, good question. I love this question, purpose. Actually, this could be the book one, right? Because there's too much said about purpose. The better question, I like to answer a question with a question. Who do you want to be is a better question to what's your purpose? Who do you want to be? And when you figure out who you want to be, your purpose will evolve out of that. Go, Tina. Sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah.
So you're talking about the market crash.
Oh, yeah.
How that basically tore your business apart, and then you said
Yep.
after that point you made your biggest sale ever.
Yep.
So delving into your beliefs, what was your beliefs before when the market crash happened, and after? How did those shift?
So my belief was prior that the global financial crisis wasn't going to affect me because I knew what I was doing. 19 years in business, very structured. But that belief got torn apart without me having to try it, right? Because it got unfolded in front of me. So it didn't take a day. It took 2 years to get me back on my feet. But that was the reconciliation process. It was like what actually happened. So I think I'm answering your question. I had to evolve my belief to understand that this is Jim Collins now I'm quoting, for those who don't know, he's a genius on the business front, is like we need productive paranoia as a belief to drive ourselves forward. In other words, what he means by that is that always be aware that there's something around the corner that could pull you down. And if you've got productive paranoia, you're going to create systems and processes within your business to stay ahead of global financial crisis, pandemic, fill in the blank, whatever your crisis is, right? So the key there is another conversation, and that is how do you build a foundational structure that's going to support you, as opposed to, this goes back to that question about growing to do more versus growing to become more. That's the process of building a foundational structure so that no matter what comes along, and if you think of a pyramid, pyramids don't fall over in a hurricane, but if you've got a V-shaped business that's built on very little and all the top sales funny stuff coming in, as soon as a storm comes, the V shifts over, and it takes 6 to 12 months to write that up again, and that's what I was doing. So I had to shift my belief to what it is I want to come.
Thank you, Torrin. we've heard your presentation,
Yep.
and in the room, some of us may realise what emotion is holding us back.
Yep.
So what would you say to that person, or those of us, who have fear of the unknown and are getting an awareness of a limiting belief?
Great question. I think if I knew the answer 100% to that, I'd be a genius. Look, it's a process of exploration. So I think it comes back to the question. It's like, are you getting what you say you want? And if the answer to that is no, then maybe it might be worthwhile exploring. So come back to the emotion. If in your psyche, and you understand now that there's a neurobiology thing going on that's creating these feelings, that's given this emotion, name it to tame it. What is this emotion that you're feeling? When you start identifying what the emotion is it anger, is it sad? And I think I heard today someone say, you're just angry about a situation that's going on at the moment. That's an unchecked emotion that hasn't been regulated with the thinking system. Doesn't mean it happens in a minute, but if you take that viewpoint to it, you can... Now, the biology in your chemistry in your brain says that if you allow an emotion, the feeling that you get, left alone for 90 seconds, the chemical reaction slows down. Problem is, within that 90 seconds, we get the gun out and the sword and we go charging. So what that does is fuels the emotion even more. And then we get a cascade of, because what's going on, another conversation, all the chemical reactions in your brain, which are going 100 miles an hour, well, millions of miles an hour quicker than your thinking system. So that's why you say things or you do things that later on when emotions calm down, you go, shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have done that. So it's an emotional regulation process. And having someone who knows what to see to pull it out of you is a skill, but it's knowledge, right? It's not like, I didn't invent this biological system. Apparently it's been going around for 5 million years. We just need to understand it because it's driving everything we're doing. Tina.
So in your slide there,
Yep.
you had self-awareness.
Yeah.
That was the key part of being able to manage yourself and your business. But at what point do you think the business owner realized that there's a problem? Because
Often never.
yeah, because you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
and as a business owner, like normally people around you will see that there's a problem with you, with your sense of self-awareness and all that. So, but in your experience, when do you think that it clicks? Do they have to hit a wall?
You'd like to think not, but generally what happens, this is life now, not talking about just necessarily business, is that, I'm sure people in this room have all experienced it. You have some sort of life crisis, which all of a sudden you go, I maybe used to think about that differently because I didn't see that coming. Mike Tyson was famous for saying everybody's got a plan until someone punches you in the face, right? So, and then when someone punches you in the face, then you have to readjust your plan. But if you're not what's that?
Collect your teeth.
Yeah. Collect your teeth and then readjust your plan. So I suppose the question or the centre of that is, if you understand that emotions are driving a lot of the stuff that you're doing, and I know you do, Dina, because you're in that world, but we all need to become more aware of it. So here's a structure of 5 A's which talks to that. So this is the structure that I use. First A is awareness. If you don't get aware, you can't do anything about it. The second one is acceptance, which is the hardest one. Until you accept, you can't do, anything you do after that, your conditioning is too strong. So until you accept there's a problem, the third A is action. You've got to take some action, that's the behaviour. Then you need assistance. Who's helping you along the way, which is the fourth A. And the last one is assessment. What's the signpost that you're seeing that you're evolving, you're becoming more self-aware? Because if you're not becoming self-aware, and that applies to Business Strategy 101 just quietly, is that helping someone evolve is like, well, are you even aware of the problem? Do you know that you're the one? I've just spoken to 5 of your staff members, and it turns out that you're the problem. Really? I didn't know I was a narcissist. A sociopath?
5 minutes before questions.
Yep.
Oliver?
Question is, in your own personal life, how do you keep in a state of constantly and never-ending improvement in focusing on that one business target goal so that you don't get off focus? And to that, the second thing, would be, how do you begin to build trust between your emotional self and your thinking self so that you, I guess, degrade your massive vision goal and even your goals that you want to achieve into things that your emotional brain can actually begin to accept and move forward and do so that you can build that habit of consistency?
Holy shit. I'm still trying to remember the first sentence. Right, the first part is you're never going to be 100% focused on just one thing, right? Your emotional system is far too powerful for that to happen, and anybody says they're fully in control 100% of the time, you're lying. And it's not even a target that you want to achieve, right? Because that's actually just going to drive you mad more and give you more anxiety. So perfectionists have this problem. Lorraine? So she didn't hear, that's good.
Somebody's called me about the food. What was it?
No, I was just talking about perfectionists and I used your name in the same sentence, that's all. So that's a recipe for you're not going to achieve what it is. So progress over perfection is my mantra. Move forward, do things, take action, become aware, get assistance, what's working, what's not working. So can you remind me, the second part was?
It was, how do you begin to build trust between your emotional self and your thinking self?
Okay, yeah, good question. New evidence, right? So remember that our biological need is to feel safe. When you feel unsafe with someone, you have fear, we display that, do I trust that person or do I not? Same thing happens to you. If you don't trust yourself, it's because you don't feel safe in who you are and what you're doing and how you're displaying this out. Does that make sense? Yeah, so trust is the antidote to fear. So if I'm meeting with Paul and I don't feel safe in his environment, I'm not going to trust him. But if he makes me feel safe in his environment at a neurobiological level, I'm going to start to trust the things that he says. But as soon as he puts my nervous system into revolt, no matter what idea he has, the greatest thing that he might have to make me lots and lots of money, my nervous system is going to find a way of self-sabotaging that and running in a different direction. And that's what we're all doing unconsciously. So that leads...
Three more and then that's it.
Maybe perfection was having Dean not here. I don't know, Lorraine. Maybe everyone's got a joke about Dean. Just a question. So in my business, I'm a facilitator. I'm just here to lead my team, build them up, supply them with what they need. It's not all about me. You work with business owners and entrepreneurs to then disseminate that through their team, so you can do this process with the team.
Yep. So just on the... Great segue. On the go, Lorraine, you're going to go. I'll answer that. But no, sorry, I thought you were going to say that. Okay, yeah, sorry. So the teamwork is how do you connect better with your marketplace, with your team? Because break it right down, one of those 4 building blocks is connection. So we are neurobiologically built to connect. So happens that District 32 is all about connection. Right? So that's actually what we want to do. To be able to move forward, we need to connect with ourselves first and then who we're trying to attach. So if you want to help your team, it's about what do you need to know about human behaviour that helps you firstly connect and convert. Right? So in the sales, so from a sales conversation, you can have all the thinking systems and everything all mapped up, but if you're not matching that person's nervous system and they don't trust who you are or their process, what they're doing, because they feel unsafe, you can be the genius and it's not going to happen, right? So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, because it's not about me, it's about people working in my business and it's about doing that for them.
Yeah, so I think it's just a case of awareness, right? Do they understand in their business to get whatever the outcomes they're looking for, how much impact this has in the results that you're trying to achieve? So I don't know exactly what the results are, but that's a, to understand it is quite a short conversation. To facilitate it is a longer one.
Thank you, James, and then Callum.
Right. I'm sorry to bring this up, but when you're working with people's beliefs and underlying emotions, some of it can get really challenging.
Yep.
Okay? Especially with childhood stuff. At what point do you decide I need to refer this on?
Yep, good question. Yeah. So if it's a trauma, like that's why I'm studying trauma at the moment, to try and identify it. As I said before, is that we all got trauma to some level of extent based on our childhood experiences. And if you come to my conversion and masterclass, you'll learn about the 4 laws of human behaviour, and that's what we talk about a little bit. And so very early on, if I see that this is you know, and the truth is that we are moving away from pain towards pleasure. So the reason you repress that and your limiting beliefs stay the way they are is because it's painful. So the way depression comes from suppressing pain, right, which is triggered by some sort of trauma. So as soon as I see that happening, so it's not a, okay, you don't believe you can do this, there's something else going on, I would ask, have they seen a professional about this? And I'm learning from that field very quickly that most of our trauma comes from our childhood experiences, and they show up later in life in business, and we spend a lot of time suppressing it, and that's what creates our limiting beliefs.
Last one.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Callum?
Oh,
Mate, hey,
yeah, good.
It took me a tough 4 years and a lot of self-growth in Kalgoorlie to realise my purpose. I'd love to hear yours.
Fulfillment aligned with my soul. That's it.
Love it. That was a good answer. I'll say it to you, Torrin. Look, guys, that's
All right, who has had the best question, Lorraine? They get 2 books, first prize and second prize. We had a few, so...
I actually like Oliver's question.
Yeah,
How
cool.
do you take your thinking to your emotions? I really like that question. And you can choose the second one, Torrin.
Which one do you want? Do you want my book or do you want the Gap Going? You know what the answer is. Actually, I'll give him both. No, young fella needs to... Thanks, guys. Appreciate time and thanks for your attention. I really do appreciate it.
How do we get in contact with
Okay.
you, Torrin?
How do you get in contact with me? On my website.
Talk to me.
So Addergy.com is the name of my business. The 2 building blocks of that name is attitude and energy. I combine them together to come up with the word Addergy. That's a building block. I've got on the desk there's a little flyer about who I am, what I do, some testimonials there. And inside there's a little flyer. I've got a masterclass coming up on the 11th of October. And that's a 5-hour conversion and masterclass. I think I've called it the Ninja Conversion and Connection Masterclass. And there's a whole thing there, what you'll get out of that. But one of the key things which is not obvious on that is that you'll get a whole lot of self-awareness of who you are and why you're not getting what you're getting. That's a byproduct. But what I want you to take away from that masterclass is how can I learn more about human behaviour to get the results that I want. So it's $495 for 5 hours. That includes 2 mastermind sessions, 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks to come back and go, what did you learn, how did you implement it, and what can we help you for? And then there's an ongoing of that if you want it. So it's really just, it's a unique learning experience. There's only 8 people because I need to get connected with who you are, what you're trying to achieve, how this impacts you. And you're going to ask me for a special offer. So if you're a District 32, yeah, I was reading your mind. So if you're a District 32 member or you've been here to the event and you mentioned that, then we'll make it $395 for the masterclass and you still get the 2 mastermind sessions. So on there it's got a number that says text Ninja to me and someone behind me will get back to you and we'll give you the information that you need to make a decision. And then these will be going on hopefully once a month going forward. So thanks guys, appreciate that. Excellent.